What's up, everyone? It's David. Welcome back to Gem Mint MTG, where we talk about all things related to graded Magic the Gathering cards. Today's going to be an interesting day. We're going to be doing a pretty in-depth technical analysis here on answering the question, how much should you pay for a graded card? We're going to take a look at the different companies, different grades, and what the expected premium is for that card based on the grade that it received. And we're going to try to answer the question, how much should you pay? So if that's something that interests you, stay tuned. And if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this channel on YouTube because there's not a lot of people talking about graded Magic cards on a regular basis, and I'm trying to change that, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. So please hit that subscribe button, join in the fun. All right, let's get into this. So what we're trying to do here is use real-world sales to better understand the expected premium that is paid based on how high the grade of a card is. We want to be able to answer questions like, what's the price difference between a PSA 8 and 9? What's the difference between a Beckett 8.5 and a PSA 9? What's the difference between a PSA 10 and a BGS 9.5? And also, how do newer companies like CGC compare with these other companies? That's the goal. Those are the kinds of questions that I hope that we're able to answer with this data. So how to do this? I basically took a big sample, over 120 cards, of sales that were made using public sale data from eBay, Facebook, personal sales that I made, purchases that I made, and other online retailers that sell graded cards, tracking their inventory. Cards grade from 8 to 10 from BGS, PSA, and CGC. And so for each card in that sample population, I got a near mint price average using multiple online retailers. So I got an average of the near mint price for that card, and then I added a premium to that near mint average for the cost of the grading, including shipping and insurance. So the average price plus the grading premium, that's like the baseline that was used to compare to the graded sale price. And then you divide one by the other, and you get a multiple that's assigned to that sale. And then those different multiples were grouped by the grading company and the grade. And then the different multiples were analyzed as a group within the others in that population for that company and grade. So let's walk through an example. So card price, $80. Adjustment for the grading fee, $35, which gives a total price of $115. Now that card sold for $150, so if we take the graded selling price of $150 and divide it by that near mint average plus the grading fee, we get $115 divided by $115, and you get a multiple of 1.30. What does that mean? That means that you would pay a 30% premium over the raw price of the card plus the grading fee. Now this also works in lower multiples. So a multiple that was 0.85, you would be basically paying 85% of the value of the card plus the grading fee, which is, in other words, a 15% discount. So actually less than the price of the card plus the grading fee. Let's hop over to Excel and take a look at the data. If you want to just kind of take a look here, this is the data set that I put together. This took a considerable amount of time, but you can see here, this is the population that was used. This is cards of all sets, all kinds of different stuff, different grades, and then I would take the price of the card from different retailers, average them out, get that grading fee adjustment, and then the multiplier. So you can see here how that was compiled, and then I basically, for Excel reasons, I had to give different reference IDs for the different types of charts that we're going to look at. But that's how it was done. Got all the data here. So let's hop back to the first graph that I wanted to look at. This is a scatter plot of the different multiples for each of these different grades. So you can see here, starting over here on the left with the PSA 8, going all the way to the right here with the PSA 10. And in between, you've got Beckett 8.5, CGC 8.5, PSA 9, BGS 9, CGC 9.5, and a Beckett 9.5 Gem Mint. So we've got pretty much everything from 8 to 10 represented here on this scatter plot. And you can see for each one of those different examples, you get a data point here of the multiple. And you can see as you go across the graph, the multiples increase to where you get the higher multiples for the more premium card grades, for the 9 5s, the 10. That's when you start getting into higher multiples. So what we want to look at here is just the overall spread of the cards, and I highlighted a few of the data points here: low points, mid points, high points, so you get an idea of what these numbers actually are, relative to that grade. But when you look at this, you see that the data is spread out pretty considerably. So at first this was the kind of chart that I wanted to use, but after looking at it, I knew that this was a little hard to understand. You kind of have quite a range. So what we want to do, we want to know what should you be paying, what's normal, what's the average for these types of premiums. So let's go to the next slide here. Now this is a box and whisker graph, and what we see here, now this looks a lot more easy to digest. You see the range, the cluster of the average range, a lot easier here now. If we look at a PSA 8 here, you can see you have low points in the 0.5 range, but on average you're going to be in that 0.8 to 1.2, around there. That's really where most of the data lies. Same thing with the Beckett 8.5. You do have on average around that same range, but a little bit less of a premium than the PSA 8. Now the PSA 8 is skewed because of this outlier. I'll address that in a following slide, but you need to watch out for things like this. This can skew the data considerably. When you omit this, the data gets a lot more normalized and it falls much more in line to what you would see with the Beckett 8.5. So just wanted to point that out for anyone who might know this kind of methodology, to know that this would skew the box up. So looking at CGC, we have a similar cluster, but a little bit less of a premium on average. I haven't seen, premiums over 1 for CGC graded cards, but they are in the range, just a little lower than normal. Now, once you get to the higher premiums, the 9s, the 9.5s, you can see here's where you're paying a premium over the price of the near mint card plus the grading fee. For example, PSA 9. A very similar result to the PSA 8. I found quite a few examples of particularly PSA where the multiples really skew the data, and you really need to watch out for that and account for it. So here you can see the PSA 9, the data is skewed by this outlier, which will be omitted in another slide further ahead. We'll address that. But you can see here's where you get on average premiums above 1. So you are going to be paying a premium for a PSA 9. Same thing with the Beckett 9. You see, you're typically not going to find a Beckett 9 for less than the cost plus the grading fee. You can see there are examples of that, but on average, you more so see data in the range of 1 to 2. Now, once you start getting into these 9.5 multiples, you can see here is where things really start to pick up. Starting off here with CGC, you can see compared to the big boys, there's not as much of a premium, but there is a premium. You can see the low point here above 1, and then you see that the data extends into the 2x range. So you would be paying twice the price of the card plus the grading fee. And then you also have more extreme examples where you get into the 2.5 range. Now, let's take a look at the high grade cards, the Beckett 9.5, starting off with the Beckett 9.5. So here you can see Beckett 9.5s, generally you're never going to find a Beckett 9.5 for less than the price of the card plus the grading fee. This is where you start to get to pretty high premiums. On average, you're looking more in the 2 to 3x range. You can see the data is heavily clustered in this box here. You do have multiples that extend into the 3, 4x range, and even multiples that go a lot higher into the 5.5 to 6 range. And you'll see this also with PSA 10. PSA 10, I actually cut this chart off at 8 because there was one particular PSA example that really skewed the data that I'll address later. But you can see on average, when you look at it with the box and whisker graph, you can see here is where on average most of the data lies, in that 2 to 3x range. Now take a look at the PSA 10. Look at the range here. Look at the range here, all the way from about 1.25 all the way up to 6x. Really big range here, similar to the BGS 9.5. But again, the data is clustered here in the 2.5x to 4x range. That is where, on average, you're going to find PSA 10 cards. This is what I consider, what I want to do here is start to figure out what's a fair price for the buyer and the seller of a card. If you want to purchase a card and you're trying to evaluate the price of that card, what do you use as a reference point? And this is what I would say. You want to see where are you in relation to the price of the near mint card. So if you're looking at a Beckett 9.5 and you're trying to evaluate, what is a fair price for this card? Am I getting a good deal on this card? Take a look at the range on these Beckett 9.5s. You can see that on average you want to be in that 1.5 to 3x range. That's the normal price for a Beckett 9.5. There are extreme examples in the 3, 4, even 5, 6x range. Once you get out here, this is where you really need to step back and ask yourself if you're getting a fair price for that card. Or if you're selling a card, are you asking a fair price for this card? Personally, for myself, after looking at the data like this, I want to be in that 2 to 3, maybe 4x range for an extreme example, maybe a very low population card or something like that, or something that might be, a quad plus plus. There are extreme examples of that, but generally, if you're looking at a basic Beckett 9.5, you want to be in that 2 to 3x range. That's where most of the data is. And on a PSA 10, you need to be even more careful. There are examples of PSA 10 selling for 6, 7, 8, even one extreme example that I'll highlight in a little bit, where you're over 10x the price of that card. And you got to be careful. You want to be in the 2.5 to 4x range for a PSA 10. There are outliers. There are quite a bit of data points in that over 4 to 5x range, which might be justified based on that individual card. But on average for a PSA 10, you want to be in that 2.5 to 4x range. That's how I would approach purchasing a card like that. So let's hop over to this chart here. I put this together to basically plot out using one card as an example, value of $100, to give you an idea of what the expected premium you should pay for that card. So for each one of these grades, you can see here we've got the low, we've got the high, the median, and the average, and then the assigned multiple for that card. So for a Beckett 8.5, you're really looking at not much of a premium. This would be, in other words, a 2.5% premium. So on a $100 card, be looking at $102.50. That's the normal price that you would want to be looking at. If you're looking at a Beckett 8.5 and you do the math and it's a 2x, 2.5x, not something that I would go for. Similarly with the PSA 8, you do have a higher high, and this is excluding that data point that I mentioned previously in the 3x range. You got to watch out. You want to be in this range. You want to be around a 10% premium for that card. So on a $100 card, $110.50. Same thing with the CGC 85, but a little bit lower. You can see a low, on average, the median and average on a CGC 8 is lower. You can see there is not as much of a premium on CGC graded cards, but overall, they do fall. There are a lot of examples that fall in a similar range to the PSA 8 and the Beckett 8.5, but just on average, it's going to be lower. You're going to be able to find deals on CGC graded cards. And the assigned value for a CGC 8.5 is 0.82. So on a $100 card, you'd be looking at $82. Now, let's take a look at the higher grades here, the Beckett 9. You see that step up here with the higher low and a higher high in the range of 0.75 to 2.27. But on average, when you look at the average, where the data is clustered, you're looking at about a 15% premium over the price of the raw card. There are examples of cards being in the 1.5 to 2x range, and I'm not saying those cards shouldn't be considered, but you really have to ask yourself if you're overpaying. If you're looking at a Beckett 9 and you're paying 2x the price of the card, you would be an outlier. And I would target cards that are more in the 15%, give or take a little bit, premium. Now the PSA 9, here's where, once again, with PSA, you get a much wider range of expected values. You see a higher high, a higher low, and a higher high. But on average, you're looking at about 1.885 multiple, which is about an 88% premium. So on a $100 card, you'd be looking at $188.50. So a higher low, a higher high than a BGS 9, with averages around 1.5x to 1.8x the price of the raw card. But you will see examples of PSA 9s that sell for 3x multiples and above. Myself personally, I would be very cautious if you're purchasing a card that is so far outside of the normal range like that. If you're looking at a PSA 9 and you do the math and it's a 4 or 5x multiple, be careful. Looking at CGC here, you can see the data moves up. There is a noticeable move in premium for a CGC 9.5, but you can see if you peek down at the Beckett and the PSA, it's not as high of a premium as those more established companies, and your premium on a Beckett on a CGC 9.5 is about 1.78x. So on a $100 card, it's actually very similar to a PSA 9. So you have typically lower premiums than gem mint copies from other companies, but you can still hit higher multiples. There are examples of CGC 9.5s hitting that 2.5x to 3x range. So it's possible, it's just not as common. Now, let's take a look at the heavy hitters. The Beckett 9.5, start off with the Beckett 9.5. You see the floor on the Beckett 9.5, 1.18x, a high of 7.53, but on average, you're looking at about 2.5 to 3x multiple. So on a $100 card, you'd be looking at around a $270 purchase price for a Beckett 9.5. Now let's take a look at the PSA 10. This is where you start to get a very large range. Examples of even under 1. Where you'd actually have a discount. I saw this. I saw examples of PSA 10s that did not sell for any premium over the price of the raw card plus the grading fee. But you also have more extreme examples of 13.67. This is where you really got to watch out. I'm not gonna say which card this was, just because, excuse me, if I was to, it was a public sale. You'd be able to track the person that bought it, and just not something that I want to do. But I saw that sale, and I felt like that person way overpaid for that card. The normal premium on a PSA 10 is going to be more in the 3 to 4x range, but there is a lot of volatility in the PSA 10, so watch out. If you're looking at a card that's maybe a very low population or something like that, you might want to, consider paying a higher multiple, but on average, for most cards, you want to be in that 3 to 4x price range. So on a $100 card, you'd be looking at $380, $350. So I felt like this approach gave a good representation using an example of a card of what you should look for, what should be the expected price for that card based on the grading company and the grade that was assigned to that card. So let's take it back here and let's wrap this up and kind of digest all this information. All right, so we went through a lot of numbers here, and I hope that this gave you a better idea of the range of prices that you can expect to pay for these different cards in these different grade levels by these different companies. And I hope you got a good understanding of what the premium, what is the premium that you can expect to pay on these cards, what's a fair deal, what's really outside of the norm, what you should be targeting in terms of cards that you're purchasing or selling in the graded marketplace. I wanted to do this for a couple reasons. One, just for my own understanding. This was something that I kind of always wanted to do, was sit down and put numbers behind this stuff, because if you've bought and sold a lot of graded cards, you kind of have an idea of what these premiums are, but this was a good way to actually put, numeric data to work and actually see the numbers behind it. And also another reason that I wanted to do this was that one of the things that I want to do on this channel is evaluate sales that are made in the marketplace on a regular basis and see what the premium is on those cards. Evaluate those sales, see how they fell in the ranges that we plotted out here, and slowly over time build this data set more and more, and further refine these multiples to where we have even tighter averages and expectations on these different grades of cards. So something that I've been wanting to do on this channel. There's a lot of people on YouTube who do Magic Marketplace videos, and graded cards are mentioned here and there, but there's no one who's really looking at graded sales on a regular basis and evaluating those sales in a way like this. And so I felt like this was a great way to get a baseline established for these different grades, so that when you look at sales in the market, you can kind of see where those sales fell in these different multiple ranges. So one thing that I'd like to do on this channel coming up is have regular videos where we look at a set of sales in the marketplace and evaluate those, see if they fell within the expectations based on these numbers, or if they were outside in the outlier range, and see maybe why that card sold for that much, if it was a good deal, if it was a low pop card or something like that. But just have a baseline to use to evaluate the graded Magic marketplace. So something that I'm going to be doing on this channel upcoming, and now you can kind of see what we're going to use to evaluate those sales. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you are new here, please subscribe to the channel. There's not a lot of people on YouTube talking about graded Magic cards on a regular basis, and I'd like to change that, and I'd really love for you to be a part of it. So hit that subscribe button, join in the fun. We're going to be talking about graded cards here all the time on Gem Mint MTG. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Have a great one.